This is Agriculture Today. I'm Samantha Bennett with the K-State Radio Network. Coming up ahead on this Tuesday's programming, we have K-State Weed Science Specialist Sarah Lancaster. She discusses what producers need to know about herbicide application and high temperatures. Also ahead, Carlos Pires, K-State PhD candidate in the Department of Agronomy, invites producers listening to participate in his short online survey exploring farmers' perceptions of on-farm research. The deadline is also coming up on that, so stay tuned for more information. To round out today's program on this week's Milk Lines, we have K-State dairy specialist Mike Brouk. He encourages listeners to celebrate National Ice Cream Month and Day coming up in July. That and more ahead awaits on Agriculture Today. Welcome back to Agriculture Today. We're starting off today's program with Sarah Lancaster. She's an Extension Weed Science Specialist here at K-State. And today we're going to be talking about the relationship between some high temperatures and herbicide application, which, as you're listening to this, we might be experiencing some abnormally cool temps. But as we know, we've had an abnormally hot summer. So especially as we go into this July month, it's going to be important to keep in mind. So Sarah, thanks for speaking with us.
Good morning, Samantha. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned, this is just something that we want to keep producers mindful of, especially as we go into this July month.
That's right, Samantha. It is summertime in Kansas. So not only are we as people adapting to the hot environment, but crops and weeds are also adapting to the hot environment. And as those weeds change, we need to make sure that we as managers of weeds and herbicide applications are adapting our practices to best suit how the weeds have changed.
Absolutely. And I guess even with some of the rain in parts of Kansas that we've gotten here lately, this is something we're going to have to keep in mind, too, with that.
Absolutely. So, we've had some interesting scenarios this summer in terms of planting dates for things. So a lot of folks are planting later and making herbicide applications later. Really have a lot to manage and figure out here as far as what's the best thing to do with the herbicide application. So yeah, the rainfall and some of those things are definitely coming into play as well.
Sure. So what kind of changes in temperature when producers are looking at the weather and taking into account what they're going to do herbicide practice-wise, what changes really should be a key factor in thinking, oh, well, now I need to switch what I'm doing?
So one of the sort of temperature thresholds to keep in mind is actually probably not as high as you would think. So a lot of times some of our plants, our weeds, will start to shift their processes around 85 degrees, which, really is a pretty comfortable summer day.
Yeah.
But, certainly once we start to see temperatures in the 90s or higher, we need to start thinking about how we're going to ensure that we get enough herbicide into the weeds and also, take into account crop safety, because some of the things that we do to increase weed management can also increase the risk of crop response to the herbicide application. So there's some things to balance there for each different manager is going to have to make that choice.
Sure. And some of those things to keep in mind, what are they?
So some things to think about is how the plants change. Okay, so some things that happen is that plants are typically going to be sort of trying to conserve as much water as possible, which means they're going to slow down some of the plant processes that the herbicides target. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that makes it more difficult for the herbicides to work. So, things to think about in general to respond to that would be to think about, maybe when, if you can choose the time of day that you're applying your herbicides, try to apply them earlier in the day so that the temperatures are cooler and the plants are not as heat stressed. You'll see better activity then. Other things to think about would be changes in the surface of the leaf. So one of the first ones that comes to mind is that plants, in order to kind of build their defenses against the environment, they're going to add layers of wax to the leaves. Okay, we're applying herbicides in water-based solutions, and wax and water repel, right? They don't mix. And so we need to think very carefully about our adjuvant systems as we think about managing weeds that have been growing in really hot environments. So, if the herbicide label gives you a choice of a non-ionic surfactant or a crop oil, the crop oil is going to be more effective at breaking down that cuticle, that waxy layer, and getting the herbicide into the plant. If you get a choice between crop oil and MSO, a methylated seed oil, the MSO is going to be more effective at breaking down that cuticle and getting into the plant. Now, you're going to be more likely to see crop injury if you go up that scale as well. But generally, that crop injury is going to be short-term and probably worth what you're going to gain in weed control. Other things to think about, kind of sticking with that crop response theme, is that our PPO inhibiting herbicides, or maybe folks have heard me refer to them as a group 14 herbicide, things like Reflex, they're going to be more prone to causing crop response as well. So folks who have been applying herbicides for a long time remember very distinctly that when you apply effective rates of those herbicides, you're going to, and particularly in soybeans, you're going to see some bronzing of the leaves and things of that nature. That bronzing is going to be greater in high temperatures. So, and then the last thing to think about, Samantha, would be that temperature affects herbicide volatility. So, this has gotten a lot of attention, particularly in terms of dicamba-resistant soybeans and making those over-the-top applications of dicamba-based products to soybeans in the summertime. So we know that as temperatures increase, the volatility of those herbicides is going to increase and is going to increase the likelihood of off-target herbicide movement. So, this is one of the reasons why the EPA has established that June 30th cutoff date for applications of products like Extendamax, Ingenia, and Tavium. So, as folks are listening to this, June 30th is going to be right around the corner. And so just being aware of the fact that the cutoff date for legal applications of those products to soybeans is June 30th. And after that point, we really are, for post-emergence control of our most problematic weeds, so things like water hemp and Palmer amaranth, I'm thinking of, the most effective options there would either be herbicide applications of Liberty, if you're in the Extend Flex system. You could use Liberty, or applications of something like a Reflex or a fomesafen-containing product, coupled probably with some glyphosate in there. So, the big thing for folks to remember as we move away from those dicamba-containing products is that weed size becomes absolutely critical for weed control. Those PPO inhibiting products are not very effective once the pigweeds get over about 4 inches tall. And 4 inches is a lot smaller than you might think.
Absolutely. Yeah, they creep up on you in terms of how fast they grow, and producers know that, but some good things to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. As we think about these rainy conditions that we're having, that can delay those herbicide applications as well. And so, taking steps to make sure that we're adjusting our herbicide programs for bigger weeds is important. More difficult to control weeds, right? Bigger weeds are going to be more difficult to control. And so some of the things that we discussed about adjusting adjuvants can be important in controlling those bigger weeds for folks that have been delayed due to rain as well.
Absolutely. So hopefully producers have been a bit more proactive and we're not getting to them too late in terms of some of these warnings. But things to be mindful of for sure, especially in terms of products that concern dicamba especially. So once again, that June cutoff date is June 30th for legal application. So producers tuning in, just keep that in mind. And also, if producers are listening to this and they're thinking, well, I want more information, is there resources that they can use to do that?
Yeah, so a lot of this information can be found in an eUpdate that we put out. Yes, that we put out last week. So that would have been the June 16th edition of the eUpdate. So, that's a great resource for folks to get information from. Everybody in the agronomy department is that eUpdate.
I know you have some upcoming field days that producers might be interested in attending. So if you want to share some information about those, please do.
Yeah, Samantha, we are going to try, as a weed science team, we're going to try our hand at a weed science field day. We're going to be doing that in the evening on July 13th. We'll have kind of a open house type of scenario from 3:30 to 5 for folks to look at our herbicide evaluation trials. Then we'll have some presentations and a dinner starting shortly after that. So
Excellent.
We hope folks will make some time to come see what my crew has been up to.
Absolutely. A fun team to interact with for sure. And if they're wanting to sign up or register for that, where can they do that at?
There is an Eventbrite link, and actually, Samantha, I would direct them to the eUpdate that just came out yesterday on Thursday the 23rd. There's a flyer with an Eventbrite link where folks can sign up.
Cool. Well, we'll have all of that linked in today's show notes as usual. And those show notes, if you're listening on the radio, they can be found on our website, which is agtoday.net, which is linked to today's podcast episode. So once again, you can find all of that and more in terms of what we've talked about even earlier this week on our agtoday.net website. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for this pertinent information for sure.
Thanks, Samantha.
That was Sarah Lancaster, an extension weed science specialist here at K-State, covering what to know in terms of high temperatures and herbicide applications this season. Ahead of us still today on this Tuesday's program, we have K-State PhD candidate Carlos Pires with information regarding one of his research studies that you tuning in could potentially participate in and provide data for. He'll be sharing with us his research study surveying producers and their opinions regarding on-farm research. Also ahead, this week's Milk Line segment with Mike Brouk. He's talking about an upcoming holiday of sorts and a good excuse to enjoy a sweet cold treat and maybe a trip to Call Hall for those of us in Manhattan. That and more ahead awaits us on Agriculture Today. Agriculture Today. We're back now with one of our students here at K-State. His name is Carlos Pires, and he is a PhD candidate in the Agronomy Department here at K-State. So, Carlos, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Samantha, for the invitation to talk about our on-farm research here in Kansas.
Absolutely. So that's specifically why you're here today, is you have an ongoing research study right now that's going to wrap up here soon. But I wanted to get you in before that just so we could let producers tuning in know about the opportunity for them to partake in this research themselves. So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so, I'm working with the Kansas Soil Health Partnership and another farmer-to-farmer network developing on-farm soil health research. And as part of this research, we want to understand the farmers' perceptions on different approaches of research, and one of them is on-farm. So we have middle and late adopters of new technologies, and this type of information is crucial for developing new strategies to reach out to those farmers.
Here at K-State, we're pretty good about involving our local producers as much as we can with our research. It's not only an opportunity for us to connect with local producers, but also for them to connect back with the university. So is that really what this research is trying to encourage?
Exactly. So we used to have the culture of knowledge transfer, and right now we are more interested in knowledge exchange. So one thing I learned a lot during my research is that farmers has a lot to offer to us, and that's what we want. So, and this research is all about this and the survey, so we want to understand what they think about what we are doing.
Sure. So if producers are hearing this and they're like, well, I want to partake in this survey, how can they find the survey?
You can find the survey in the Agronomy eUpdate and also in our website, which is ksusoilmicrobes.com. So on the first page, we'll find that. You can just click the link. It will take no more than 5 minutes, I promise. And we are recording that anonymously.
That's the key part here. It's really just 5 minutes or less in some cases out of these producers' days. So it's something that we're asking of them, but it's really beneficial in terms of what it'll contribute to your research.
It is, and most of the questions, 90%, they are multiple choices questions, so it will be very easy to answer, and that means a lot. So we have currently more than 300 responses from multiple U.S. states, and we want Kansas being part of that as well.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the cool part about this is it's a multiple state research survey, so anyone listening and tuning in from across the country can partake in this research, and I encourage those of you from outside of Kansas to really tune in and try and participate as well. I know that we have about a week left. July 1st is when this survey will wrap up, so we just want to encourage people to participate as soon as possible, as soon as they hear this, so that gives them about a week here.
Exactly. Yes, it's the last week to participate. It's open since May. And we are sharing this with multiple universities, extension departments. So if you are in a different state, so you may find that on the website of your own land-grant university as well.
Sure. And then I know, Carlos, that your research goes far beyond just this survey, that you mentioned this was just part of your review to becoming a PhD candidate. So tell us a little bit more about the research you have going on.
Yeah. So, I'm currently working on the Kansas Soil Health Partnership. It's a farmer-led initiative that fosters sustainable agriculture, and it's supported by Kansas Corn. We used to work with the National Corn as well, Growers Association, but they had the Soil Health Partnership there. So they are not operating anymore, but we continue the research here in Kansas. So what we are doing is basically to test standard farmer practices, usual as business, versus a improved practice. Right now we are working with cover crops from most of the farmers. Kansas is leading the country with no-till areas, acreages, but only 3.2% of those areas are under cover crops. So we are making an effort to test cover crops and develop new strategies so farmers can really use that and make some profit with the next cash crop with those cover crops, and also increasing and improving resilience of their systems.
Sure, and like you just mentioned, there's some added benefits when it comes to producers considering cover crops. So I don't know in the coming season, once corn's wrapped up, when that time of year usually is, but what are some things producers really should know about cover crops?
Yeah, so, the main challenge of cover crops is the window they have for planting those cover crops. It could be after soybean, it could be after corn, and before soybean, before corn, or after wheat, some grazing, warm season cover crops as well. So it's important to first understand how much time you have for those cover crops, and then define and decide which one is the best for you. I know most of the farmers in the Midwest, they are using rye as a cover crop, and some farmers in Kansas are also using wheat as another option.
Well, we're in the midst of wheat harvest here, so timely information for sure. I'm sure in the next coming weeks that'll be wrapping up soon, so people will be keeping in mind what they might want to plant in consideration for that.
Yes, for sure.
So, Carlos, I really am appreciative of your time this afternoon, specifically because in the next day or so, you're traveling across the world, really,
yes,
for an exciting conference. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll be attending a Soil Organic Matter Symposium in Seoul, South Korea. And we'll be presenting another research we have in Kansas, which is the MAPS. It's the microbiome of aquatic plants and soils. So we developed a research understanding the effect of the precipitation. We know we have a gradient from west to east in Kansas, and we want to understand how that may affect carbon storage and sequestration. We also are testing different land uses. So we have our native prairie, we have restored prairie, which used to be conventional agriculture with lots of tillage and oxidized and degraded organic matter, and also testing no tillage. So that's all about what I'll be doing in South Korea, and explaining some of our results here, how this precipitation and land use may affect soil aggregates, and also consequently affecting carbon in the soil microbial community.
Wow, excellent. So that sounds like some really cool research. Is there, if people are tuning in and they're like, I want to know more about all of this, where can they find some of that research at?
They can find more at the KSU soilmicrobes.com. So it's the website of our team. My advisor is Dr. Chuck Rice. You can find a lot of information there about all the research we are doing here in Kansas and across the globe.
Like I said, Carlos, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and we wish you safe travels to Korea.
Thank you very much. It will be a long flight, 16 hours, so yeah.
Absolutely. So, Carlos, hopefully you'll get some participation.
Yeah, Samantha, thank you very much for the opportunity. And if you are Kansas farmers, your response on that survey is really important to us to develop new policies, new strategies, to be able to do more knowledge exchange and not only knowledge transfer here in Kansas.
That was Carlos Pires, a PhD candidate here at K-State in the Department of Agronomy, covering his research that is currently ongoing and extending an invitation to those listening to partake in that research before July 11th. More information on that research can be found in the show notes of today's episode, which is, as always, located on agtoday.net. Now, to round out this portion of Agriculture Today, we have a PSA on approaching 4-H deadlines from Marcia Boswell, the VP of Communications for the Kansas Wheat Commission.
Farm families across the state are laser-focused on wheat harvest, but county 4-H fair deadlines are also quickly approaching. Whether your 4-H'er is catching samples for the crop production project, snapping the perfect harvest photo during dinner, or still trying to decide on the perfect recipe for a foods entry, Kansas Wheat has resources available and additional opportunities to share those projects with others across the state. The National Festival of Breads is a public festival held every other year. Recipe entries from around the country are tested out in the Syngenta Speak for Wheat test kitchen by nutrition educator Cindy Falk. Each of the finalist recipes is truly one of the best, with detailed instructions, tips, and nutrition information provided. Check out traditional yeast bread and roll recipes, recipes with unique ingredients, and even recipes for creating beautiful shapes at nationalfestivalofbreads.com. Looking for even more recipes to comb through for the perfect fair entry or harvest meal? Eat Wheat is a consumer-facing website that provides awareness of farm and production practices while also sharing beautiful wheat photography, full meal ideas, activities for the entire family like salt dough ornaments, and of course, the best wheat food recipes around. Explore the fun at eatwheat.org. As county fair participants start looking to practice recipes for the state fair or youth want to show off their wheat photography or just learn more about wheat, mark your calendars for the Kansas 4-H Wheat Expo. Sponsored by the Kansas Wheat Commission and many other partners from across the state, the Kansas 4-H Wheat Expo is scheduled for Thursday, August 4th. The one-day event will take place from 9 to 3 at the Stafford County Annex Building in St. John. The event is open to all and has special opportunities targeted to 4-H and FFA members. In addition to a wheat judging contest, 4-H and FFA youth ages 7 to 19 and Clover buds ages 5 and 6 can participate in a market wheat show. The market wheat show includes Bin Run Wheat Crop Production Project, Bin Run Wheat Adopt a Producer, Clean Wheat 1 quart, yeast rolls, cookies, muffins, wheat photo, wheat educational poster, and clover buds. In addition to the exhibits and judging contest, participants will be able to tour the Stafford County Flour Mill, Osborne Fruit and Vegetables, a family-owned field-to-table produce business, and Spare Farms, which markets vegetables sold at farmers markets in surrounding cities. Learn more about the 2022 Kansas 4-H FFA Wheat Expo at kswheat.com. For Kansas Wheat, I'm Marcia Boswell.
That was Marcia Boswell, VP of Communications for the Kansas Wheat Commission. We'll be back with more ahead on Agriculture Today. As always, to round out this Tuesday's program, we have K-State dairy specialist Mike Brouk with this week's Milk Line segment. Today, he'll be talking about a few fun things to look forward to in the dairy industry.
Today, I'd like to speak to our Kansas dairy farmers and, well, just everyone, actually, about some exciting things happening in the dairy industry. Most of you know that June is Dairy Month, and hopefully you got to attend a celebration or two. But did you know that the month of July is Ice Cream Month? In 1984, President Ronald Reagan declared the month of July, as well as the third Sunday in July, as National Ice Cream Month and National Ice Cream Day. So, if you missed the celebration of dairy in June, let's not miss the celebration of ice cream when it comes to the month of July. So, how are you going to celebrate it? Well, if you're in Washington, D.C., there'll probably be a celebration. My understanding, the celebration that took place just a few years ago required 1,500 gallons of ice cream and more than 2,000 root beer floats. Maybe you're not going to have something that large, but maybe you should invite some of your friends over and just celebrate ice cream. So why should we celebrate ice cream here in the United States? Well, here's some fun facts to consider. Number one, did you know that Americans are the number one ice cream consumers in the world? Interesting. Supposedly, we consume about 48 pints of ice cream per person per year. Well, I don't know if you've had your 48 pints for the year. I don't think I've had quite mine. My doctor probably maybe appreciates that, but, I'm probably missing out on some wonderful things. So, what kind of ice cream do we prefer to consume? What's the most popular flavors out there? Well, vanilla actually is the favorite of about 28%, chocolate about 14%, strawberry about 3%, chocolate chip about 3% as well, and butter pecan about 2.8%. Well, there's lots of different choices out there, aren't there? So when you think about all the different choices we have in flavors, it would be easy to pick up just a few boxes and take them home and enjoy it with your family or friends. As you look at how much you spend on ice cream, here's an interesting fact. Even George Washington allocated money toward ice cream. In fact, there are records that show that in 1790, he allocated $200 for ice cream purchases during the hot summer. Well, I don't know about you. I'm not sure how much ice cream you could buy for $200 in 1790. But even today, that'd be a lot of ice cream. And I'm sure it was much more back then. So it's important that we think about ways that ice cream is actually used. It can be used in a variety of things. Obviously, just in the dish is a fine way to consume it. You can also consider things like root beer floats, banana splits, and many other ways that we can consume that. So when you think about ice cream, maybe you make homemade ice cream. Here's an interesting fact. It is believed that a recipe for old-fashioned vanilla ice cream from Thomas Jefferson may be the oldest ice cream recipe in the United States. The original recipe actually is in the Library of Congress, and you can find various transcripts of it on the Internet. Interesting, it contains many of the same things you probably use in your vanilla ice cream, like cream, eggs, some sugar, and it was actually cooked a little bit to take care of any of the issues that we might have with bacteria. So, again, ice cream dates back here in the United States to a very early time in our country, and some of our early founding fathers actually enjoyed ice cream. So, my encouragement to you is to get out and enjoy National Ice Cream Day. Again, July 17th is the actual day, but the whole month of July is Ice Cream Month, so you can enjoy it every day if you want and support your dairy industry in that regard. This is Mike Brouk with K-State Research and Extension, encouraging Kansas people to enjoy National Ice Cream Month as well as National Ice Cream Day.
Once again, that was K-State Dairy Specialist Mike Brouk with this week's Milk Lines. That'll wrap up this Tuesday's Agriculture Today programming. We'll be back with more tomorrow. From Agriculture Today, I'm Samantha Bennett with the K-State Radio Network.